Hello, good evening. Hope we are all fine. Once again, we are here, and today we'll be talking about production and cost. So first, we start from production, and we move to cost. So basically, production is basically the creation of goods and services, or like, how do I even put this? Like producing goods and services. So let's move on to what is really important in here. So production function, which is basically the technological relationship between input and output. So the relationship between input and output, basically. So it is given by the function production, which is Q, equals to the function of L, which is labor, and the function of K, which is capital. So the maximum output that can be produced with K units of capital and L units of labor. So basically, that's what it means. The production function is the maximum amount of output that can be produced with K units of capital and L units of labor. So we have the short run and in the long run when it comes to production. So in the short run, at least one variable is fixed. So it just as we did in, I think, macroeconomics, right? So in the short run, the capital is fixed. This is because the firm is new to the system and then wouldn't have enough maybe money to increase its capital size. So in the short run, for example, capital for a firm is fixed, and then in the long run, so it depends, not only capital, sometimes labor is fixed and then the otherwise. So in the short run, at least one input is fixed, right? But in the long run, all inputs are variable, meaning that the firm will now be able to adjust to, or will be able to adjust, or will be able to change capital or labor respectively. So we have the Cobb-Douglas production function. According to, all right, so let me continue. So this is the Cobb-Douglas functions production, Cobb-Douglas production function, which according to this function, it assumes that there is some degree of substitution between the inputs, but they are not perfectly substitutes, right? But you can use one, like one more, and then use the less of the other, and then produce the same type of output. That's what it basically means for the Cobb-Douglas function. So meaning that even though you cannot use, let's say, in a firm that, let's say a firm that produces, let's say, cars, for example, right? You can use labor, more of labor and then less of capital, right? But you can't completely use labor throughout. You get it? And you can use more of capital and then less of labor, but you can't use capital throughout, right? So this is what this function basically means. So, for example, if this is what is up there, if K is fixed, right? If its capital is fixed at 16 units, right? And the short run production function is, then the short run production function is 16 raised to the power 0.5 times L 0.5, which is equivalent to 4L raised to the power 0.5. That's what we are seeing here. So if we are to produce production when 100 units of labor are used, we are now substituting L by 4, L by 100, and then this is what we are getting. We are getting 40 units because L is raised to the power 0.5 and which is giving us 10. So 4 times the 10 is giving us this 40 units that we are seeing here. So marginal product is basically the additional production as a result of the labor that has been introduced. So basically, it's similar to what we know already. So, for example, in this function, for example, if we want to solve for marginal product, then what we are going to do is differentiate L. For example, if L is equal to K raised to the power 0.5, L raised to the power 0.5, then if we want to get marginal product of capital, then we are going to differentiate K in here. So it's a partial differential of K with respect to K, right? Which will give us, we have negative 0.5 at the top, so 0.5 times K will give us 0.5 K, right? Now we will have, now it will be 0.5 minus 1 at the top here. So now it will turn to negative 0.5. Then we still have our L raised to the power 0.5, right? So if we want to solve for marginal product MPL, then we differentiate Q with respect to L, which is then equal to, we're using the same function here, for example, we will be getting K 0.5, then 0.5 L raised to the power negative 0.5. So this is what MC, marginal product of labor, and marginal product of capital will mean in here. All right. So let's continue. So marginal product, it measures the output produced by the last labor, which is marginal product of labor. It measures the output produced by the last labor. So in a firm where they normally produce, let's say, 1,000, let's say in a phone factory where they normally where each worker produces 1,000 phones, right? If they also want to know whether the last employer or the last labor just employed also produced 1,000, this is when they use the marginal product of labor to find out whether the last worker who was just employed has also produced 1,000. So slope of the short-run production function with respect to labor. That's what it means. And then the marginal product of capital is something. Change in quantity with respect to change in capital measures the output produced by the last unit of capital. When capital is allowed to vary in the short run, MPK, or marginal product of capital, is the slope of the production function with respect to capital. So as I said earlier before here, I said that either labor or capital can vary in any of the short run. Just that in the short run, one of them is fixed. You get it? Both of them are not vary in the short run. One of them is at least fixed, right? So average product is basically Q, which is the total product all over labor, which is we have average product of labor, which is equal to Q, the total product over labor, right? So basically, there is an example they did here. Q, which is the function, is A raised to the power 0.5 L L raised to the power 0.5. If the K units, if the inputs are K equal to 16 and L is equal to 16, right? So we'll be getting 4 for each. We'll be getting 4. For 16 raised to the power 0.5 is 4. 16 raised to the power 0.5 is 4. So 4 times 4 is now giving us 16. So since you are solving for the average product of labor, we divide it by the number of labor employed, right? And the labor employed here is 16. It's 16. That's why we divided by the 16 and we are getting 1. Right. All right. So the same thing also applies to capital. The same thing, since capital was employed, 16 capital were employed, the same thing we are having here. So here comes an interesting part of this session, which is increasing diminishing negative returns to diminishing marginal returns. So to make this lively, let me try and then add some figures in here to make it lively. So let's say here is 0, here is 7, here is, let's say, 14. This is the same as total product. This is the same as total product. Right. So we can see that from 0 going, when from 0 or from the initial point here, when labor were being, because here is L labor and here is the quantity produced, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can see that as more and more of the, in the short run, for example, or initially, when more and more of the labor were being employed, we can see that marginal returns were increasing. They were increasing. This is what we call increasing marginal returns. This is when marginal products for labor increases. So it was increasing. Then when it got to, when the 7th labor was being employed, marginal product for labor got to the maximum, right? So after the 7th labor, we can see that any additional labor that was employed, marginal product was what? Decreasing. Marginal product was decreasing. And up to the 14th labor. So after the 14th labor was, after any labor that will be employed after the 14, like 15 going, 15, 16 going, we can see that NP, marginal product, is beginning to attain a negative, right? So this is trying to tell us that there are some implications when we overhire like 2 number of workers in a firm. For example, if you have a small firm, for example, and you employ 7, they are more productive. Since the firm is small, they are productive. But once you tend to employ more and more, now more workers come into the firm, and one, they can become familiar with each other. They can use working hours to chat about themselves, which is decreasing marginal products and the likes. But when they tend to employ more and more and more, they can become more in the firm to the extent that they wouldn't be even able to work. Now doing what? Um, Producing negative marginal products. So you can see that when marginal products go to zero, right, total products also go to its maximum. Right? When marginal products start to attain negative, total products began to attain negative. So if you are to ask, at what point are you to employ? You can see that, like this firm, for example, shouldn't employ any labor after the 14th labor, right? Because after that, it produce its total product force, which will significantly affect its total revenue. If we are to also use this as students, for example, when we are learning, if we are to, let's say, if we are to study for an exams, we have very likely experienced various phases of marginal returns, right? The first few hours we spent on studying increases our grade much more than the few hours, much more than the last few hours. So, for example, suppose we will make a zero if we don't study, right? If we are to like score zero if we don't study, but we'll make 75 if we study for 10 hours. The marginal product of the first 10 hours is what? 75. Since when we study for the first 10 hours, we are getting 75 marks. If it takes 20 hours of studying to score 100 on an exam, then the marginal product for the second 10 hours is for 25, because first 10 hours is 75 and the second 10 hours now is 25. So we can see that it has started reducing, right? If in case we overlearn during the night, thinking that we've not really covered much, and then we tend to get very tired, we might even end up going to the exam hall and going to sleep there, or getting blackouts where we won't be able to write anything and then get zero. So this is where we start to what? Attain negative at the MP, marginal product. So we can see here, we can label here to be our first 10 hours. The first 10 hours is here. And then the next 10 hours is here. The next 10 hours is here. That because marginal revenue, marginal product was decreasing. And then now, if we overlearn, you will start to attain negative. So that's what basically it means here. So let's move on. So guiding the production process, producing on the production function, aligning incentives to induce maximum effort, maximum workers' effort, for example, employing the right level of input. When labor or capital vary in the short run, to maximize profit, a manager will hire labor until the value of marginal product of labor equals to the wage, right? Keep this in mind. We'll be using this to solve more questions. So, when labor or capital vary in the short run, to maximize profit, a manager will hire a labor until marginal product of labor equals to marginal wage. So equal to the wage. Sorry. So for example, so getting which we are getting value marginal product. So value marginal product is the the value of the value we are getting from the last labor we employed. So this means that the value that we are getting from the last labor should be equal to the wage we are paying for the last labor. You get it? So if the wage is more than the value we are getting from the labor, then it means that we are the labor is not really producing or working efficiently. You get it? So where value marginal product is the price times the marginal product, right? So the price of the product times the marginal product. So if in the case of capital 2, we will employ the capital onto the value, onto a value marginal product of capital is equal to the rate we are paying for it, right? Which is the same thing. So we will solve some examples to cover this up. So now we have we are on the part of isoquants. So some few minutes. Sorry, I'm back. So basically, isoquants is a combination of inputs, it is capital or labor, that yields the producer the same level of output. The shape of an isoquant reflects the ease with which a producer can substitute among inputs while maintaining the same level of output. So, for example, I think, okay, so let me use this as an example. So you've gone to Bush Canteen, right? That's my favorite place to eat, right? And then you have, let's say, you can buy, let's say, 10 balls, or you can buy, let's say, Banku 10 CDs, and then meet 10 CDs, and then get satisfied, right? And also, you can also buy Banku 5 CD, and then meet 15 CDs and get satisfied. Or you can also buy Banku 7 CD, meet 20 CDs and get satisfied. Right. So the isoquant is trying to tell us that the which combination of meat, right, and then Banku, that will yield us the same level of output. So like basically what it is trying to say that the shape of an isoquant reflects the ease with which producer can substitute among inputs. So for example, the input I'm talking about here is Banku and then the meat, right? So how you can substitute between the Banku and then the meat and then get the same level of satisfaction. That's what I'm trying to talk about here. So basically that's what this means. So this is where marginal rate of technical substitute comes in, MRTS. Basically, we should keep this in mind because we'll be using this to solve more questions. So the marginal rate of technical substitute is the rate at which two inputs are substituted whilst maintaining the same output level. So you changing between Banku you doing between buying more of banku and then less of meat to maintain the same kind of satisfaction, or you buying more of meat and then buying less of banku to maintain the same satisfaction, right? So so that is what this basically means. Let's move on. So now we come to linear isoquants. So linear isoquants is a situation whereby capital and labor are perfect substitutes. So what we do here is we use the Leo. I don't know what I've forgotten his name. Is it Leontief? Leontief function or so. It is also more or less like a concept like the Cobb-Douglas. So its function is Q is equal to AK plus BL, which K is capital B. So A is the rate or the price of capital, and then B is the price of labor. So marginal rate of technical substitute is equal to B A. So basically, this is what it means here. Let me write. So marginal rate of technical substitute, for example, is equal to MRCS is equal to MPA right over MPL. That's what it means, right? And we equate this to the equivalent wage. So K, for example, is A. And then this is also B. We'll talk more about this in the later chapter, like in this chapter. I think we'll even get an example. So the linear isoquants imply that inputs are substituted at a constant rate depending on the output levels employed. So this is when we are trying to increase output. For example, maybe if here is quantity 1, we are only producing 1 quantity, or producing 2 quantity, or producing 3 quantity. We can see that in all our usage of labor and capital will be different. For example, at quantity 1, we can produce this and this, or we can produce this and this, or we can produce this and this. Mind you that K is for capital. This here is capital, and then here is labor. So if let's say here is 10, here is let's say 2, 5, 5, and the like. So like that. So if we want to also produce output 2, we can also do same thing. So for the Leontief isoquants, right? Capital and labor are perfect complements, which means they are used together, and capital and labor are used in a perfect proportion. So according to the Leontief function, what he was trying to say was that there's no way humans a capital can be used without humans, right? So in his example, he made in his theory, he made some example. For example, using cars. For example, if we have 10 cars and we have one driver, how many drives will we have? We will have only one drive because only one driver can drive. Only one driver can drive only one car, right? So if we have, let's say, 10 cars and we have 5 drivers, we can only use 5 cars. So we can only have 5 drives. So that was what he was trying to talk about. So if, let's say, we have, similarly, if we have, let's say, 10 drivers and we have 5 cars, we can only have 5 drives because they can, only 5 drivers can drive 5 cars, right? So that's what basically it means. So in solving for the Leontief function, we solve by looking for the minimum between the price of labor, and then the price of capital. Then we select that one. So if for example, let's use, this is the function here, the minimum of capital. So if for example here we have this to be the B to be, let's say, 3, and then K to be 5, right? And then we have CL to be, let's say, 7, and C to be 7, and we have L to be, let's say, 3, right? We are having 15 and then 21. Therefore, because of this mean, we are selecting the minimum of this, which the answer is 15. So meaning that we can only use the smallest, like the minimum part of this, because even though labor is 21, right, we can only use 15, which is available of capital. That's what it means under the Leontief function. I don't know how important it is though, but I've seen some past questions which were having it. I didn't want to teach it though, but I've seen some other past questions which was having. So since capital and labor are consumed in phase proportions, there is no input substitute alongside. So meaning that one cannot be used and leave the other. So both of them are used together. That's what it means, like the driver and the car and the lights. So this is how it looks like. It is L-shaped. So irrespective of where you choose, the same labor and capital will be used. So if you choose here, if you choose to produce here, you get the same labor and capital. If you choose to produce here, the same labor and capital. If you choose to produce here, the same labor and capital. If you choose to produce here, the same labor and capital. That's what it means throughout, right? Like, so now the smallest part the smallest part is what you will use. So that's for the Leontief function. For me, it makes sense if only you are running a transport service. So now we come back to the Cobb-Douglas. So for the Cobb-Douglas, it is for his theory, he was trying to say that there is some kind of substitution between them. You can substitute, there are some extreme kind of substitution between them. You can substitute capital for labor and still production will go on. But you cannot use only one throughout the process. That was what he was basically talking about, that you can't use capital to produce, like you can't use only capital to produce. At least you need some humans to even manage the capital, like the machines. And you cannot also use labor throughout. At least some machines are needed to even cut metals and the like. So that's what he was trying to say. And then it also made sense. So inputs are not perfectly substitutable. but they can be not perfectly, but they can be substitutable. Diminishing marginal rate of technical substitution. So meaning that there is diminishing marginal rate of technical substitution. And as less of one input is used in the production process, increasingly more of the other must be employed. So if you are using less of labor, you have to use more of capital. And if you are using less of capital, you have to use more of labor. That's what it means here. So that's when if you want to produce at the same level of output. So this even makes sense in the sense that, let's say for now, not only about using the same Bushke something, right? You have 20 CDs, right? And one ball of Banku is, let's say, 5 CDs, and then one chicken, okay, no, let's say you have 50 CDs. One ball of Banku is, let's say, 5 CDs, and then one chicken is 15 CDs, right? So let me do this example, okay, so that I don't get confused because I'm creating this example by myself. So one ball of Banku is equal to 15, 5 CDs, sorry. Chicken is equal to 15 CDs, right? So according to Cobb-Douglas, you can't eat only Banku and get satisfied. And you can't also eat only chicken and get satisfied, right? If you have 50 CDs, if 50 CDs is what you are going to spend on the market and you want to get satisfied, right? You can choose the best kind of what you buy and then get satisfied. Some might choose to buy 2 chicken, then Banku 4 balls. For me, for example, I'll choose to buy Banku like 8 balls. No. So 7 balls. I'll buy Banku 7 balls and then chicken 1. Even chicken, if I like this, will give me like 10 CDs. This even reduce it because I need more of the Banku than the chicken. So that's basically what it means. Like when we have our money and then we want to go and buy something, we think about how can we combine this food and this food to get our maximum satisfaction, because we will not be able to spend only eat only one of the food and then get satisfied. So we are trying ways and means to corroborate the two together and then make sure that we are satisfied. So that's what he means in here. So according to him, so marginal rate of technical substitute is basically MPL, marginal product of labor, over marginal product of capital. So this was the thing. MPL over MPL. Right. That's what this means to me. And this is basically K raised to the power alpha and then L raised to the power alpha, which is basically what we did in the other side, which was the 0.5. They can give anything in there. So this is the increasing type. So if you are producing quantity 2 and the likes, is what it means. So the combination of inputs that produce a given level of output at the same cost is the wage of labor, right? Which can be, let's say, the price of Banku, the price times the number of Banku that you buy, plus the price times the number of chicken that you buy is equal to your 50 CDs. You get it? So if you want to solve for the number of chickens to buy, and then here, for example, they made K the subject. Making K the subject in this equation is what is giving us this. I don't know, we won't really use it that much, but I think we'll solve some questions and then it will cover up. For giving input prices, isocosts far from the origin are associated with higher prices. Changes in input prices change the slope of isocost line. So it is basically the same thing. So cost minimization. Marginal product per dollar spent should be equal for all inputs. So for example, if you really want to know whether you are getting more satisfaction from banku or from the chicken, you have to equate first. What you are going to do is the marginal product of labor over marginal product of capital, which will be equal to their wage over half, right? So this is what it means in here. I'm just trying to use the banku as an example so that we will be getting it throughout. So this is also the same written as MPL all over the wage equal to MPK all over R. Right. So let's the previous way. I used 5 as the price of banku, right? And I use 15 as the price of chicken. So let's say MPK is chicken and MPL is banku, right? So let's say the value marginal product of, let's say MPL, for example, let's say MPL is let's say 3 MPL. Oh. And then let's say MPP is, let's say, okay, let's say MPL, MPP is, let's say, 6. So if we want to see whether we are getting more satisfaction from banku or the chicken, what you are going to do is you are going to use this to find for that. So MPL here is 3 all over the wage, which is the price of banku is 5. And then MPK here is 6. And then the price of chicken here is 15. I'm just using it as an example, right? So if we are to use calculator to check this out right now, let's see whether I can get the calculator to do this. So 3 divided by 5 is given as 0.6. And then 6 divided by 15 is given as 0.4. So clearly, we can see that this is greater than this. So this is trying to tell us that eating banku, for example, at this price gets us more satisfied than chicken. So meaning that banku is more satisfaction. It's more satisfying than chicken. That's what this basically means. So if you also solve for MPL over wage and MPK over R, and you see that MPL over wage is greater than MPK over R, then it means that using more labor in the firm is more efficient as compared to using more capital. So what this means is that the implication of this is that we are going to use more of the labor, or here is the case, we are going to eat more of banku to be able to in the later time decreasing the how efficient banku is to come and then equate to how chicken. I don't know how to put this, but since eating banku is more satisfying than eating chicken, right? We are going to eat more of banku, so that we are going to eat more of banku until banku decreases to come and then equate the satisfaction we are getting from chicken. At this point, we are saying we are minimizing cost. So until these two becomes equals, until they become equal, we are not achieving we are not minimizing cost. Until they become equal before we minimize cost, or we can say that the firm is producing efficiently. So I don't know if you understand it, but I'm just trying to break it down in, for example, food aspect. So banku and chicken are basically food here in our local country here, Ghana. So I'm just trying to use this so that my colleagues can get this. All right, so let me continue. So basically, where they become equals is where the point of cost maximization is. So for example, on some the same thing. All right. So, let me continue. So optimal input substitution. A firm initially produces Q naught by employing the combination of inputs represented by point A at C O. Okay, I'm showing this down here. Right. So at CO, here is it at CO. And then suppose the wage 0 falls to wage 1, wage 0 falls to wage 1, wage 0 falls to wage 1. Now this is it, right? So the ISO cost curve rotates clockwise, which represent the same level prior to the wage. To produce the same level of Q naught, the firm will produce a lower cost line at B. So initially, this is what they were using. They were using a labor 0 here, but since labor has the wage rate of labor has fallen, right? Meaning that they can employ more labor. So here increasing labor and then now reducing capital. They are employing more labor because now labor is more efficient. Labor costs less. So now they are employing more labor and then decreasing capital to produce the same Q naught. That's what we are seeing here. So this comes to the end of production. Let me see whether I will get some finishing touches for us to deal with it. All right, so I want to see some finishing touches. No finishing touches. All right, we will solve for the finishing touches. We will solve it in a tutorial. And we will get some questions and solve it in the tutorial. But I'm sure that using that banku as an example, I think it's okay. It's okay. I'm seeing some example here, just that it's long. It's easy, but it's long. So for example, let's try this. So for example, they are saying that Terrelon service rents 5 small push mowers. So small push mowers. Let's represent small push mowers as let's represent rent 5 small push mowers and 2 large riding mowers to cut lawns of neighborhood households. The marginal product of a small push mower is 3 lawns per day, and the marginal product of a large riding mower is 6 per day. So the marginal MP of small push, so I'm using it small push, it's S, is equal to, they said the marginal push of small mower is 3, and then the marginal push of big large blower, MP large blower, is equal to the marginal push of large mower is 6. Right now, the price of the small this thing is the price of the small mower is 10, and the price of the big mower, the large mower, is 25. Now let's check whether they said Terrelon is Terrelon service utilizing small push mowers and large riding mowers in a cost minimizing manner. That's what they're asking. So let me get let me see whether I can get. So now we know that for maximization purpose, MPF over PS should be equal to MPL all over PL. That's for minimization purpose, cost minimization. This is what it should look like. So if we solve and it is equally like this, we are minimizing cost. But if one way or the other, if one is bigger than the other, then one is more efficient than the other. So let's do this. So MPS here is 3, and then PS is 10, and then MPL is 6, and then PL is 25, right? After solving everything, we can see that the marginal product for the small push lowers is higher than we can see that, the MPS over PS is more higher than MPL over PL. So meaning that the small push mowers are more efficient than the large push mowers, right? So the marginal product per dollar spent on small push mowers exceed the marginal product per dollar spent on the large riding mowers. So riding mowers are twice as productive as push mowers, but more than twice as expensive. The firm clearly is not minimizing costs that should use fewer riding mowers and then use more push mowers. So I think this clearly solves our problem. So let me quickly move to cost. This video will be lengthy, but let's go to cost. So total cost is the minimum total cost, which is CQ, is the minimum total cost of producing alternative level of output. So total cost is basically the variable cost, the total variable cost plus the total fixed cost. So the cost function is obtained from the firm's cost minimization problem, right? Variable cost is basically cost that vary with output. Let me see what that is. All right. So uh, from this diagram, for example, this is the fixed cost, which is here, right? Right. The variable cost is here, right? And then the total cost is from here to here, right? So basically, so um, let me quickly see whether I can brush through this. So PQ equals VCQ plus FC, right? So from here, average variable cost AVC will be equal to VCQ all over Q, right? And then average fixed cost will be equal to FC all over Q. Total cost, the average total cost ATC is equal to CQ all over Q. You see, So it runs through since SHS up to here, the same kind of formula, but here we have to tweak it small. So let's move on. So first cost is in here. Variable cost is also in here. Total cost is in here. So let's look at this. Let's look at this cubic cost function formula, for example. Now we have the cost function to be F plus AQ plus BQ square plus CQ cube, right? So we want to find marginal cost, for example. So if we want to find marginal cost, we are coming to differentiate total cost with respect to Q, right? Anywhere we are seeing Q, we are differentiating it. So we are differentiating it. So we are coming to differentiate CQ with respect to Q, right? So in here, we are going to, since F doesn't have any Q, we are leaving that one out. Here, AQ is here. So let's solve AQ separately. AQ, right, has 1 at the top. So this 1 is used to multiply here times AQ, but here minus 1. So now we are getting 1 times A Q raised to the power 0. So 1 times A, right? Because A number raised to the power 0 is 1, so we are getting A. That's why we are getting A here. So right, so that's why we are getting A here. So now so we are getting A here. So now let's take B Q squared to here. BQ has Q has a square here, so we are using the 2 to multiply BQ. Now these 2 will be we will subtract 1 from it. That's the differentiation. So now we are getting 2. We are getting 2 BQ because it will be left with 1 on the top. So we are getting plus 2 BQ. So now let's take the other one. So let's take, now we are done with the second one. So let's take CQ3. We can see CQ3 has Q has a cube there. So we are coming to use the 3 times CQ. 3 now minus 1. So we are getting 3 CQ with 2 plus 3 CQ with. That's why they are getting this. Simple, right? Let's move on. So now, if total cost is this, Now look at this here. If total cost is 10, if total cost is 10, if CQ is equal to 10 plus Q plus Q square, kindly pause and then find the MC for me. Find MC for this for me. Find MC for me and then write it in the comment section. Kindly do that. Just pause, find MC for me and then type it in the comment section. Please, let me give you like 2 minutes to do that. All right. So let me do it. Check if you had correct. Pause and then do it. And then after that, cross-check to see if you had it correct. So MC here is equal to partial differential of CQ with respect to Q. Right. So now it is equal to, now let's take Q because 10 doesn't have any Q there. So we are doing the ones that only have Q. So Q is here. Q has 1 at the top here, but it is not normally shown. So we are coming to use this 1 times Q raised to the power 1 minus 1 because we are multiplied. So now we are getting 0 here. So we are not getting anything for Q. So it is 1. Sorry, we are not getting 0. We are getting 1. Because Q, any number raised to the power 0 is 1. So now Q has 10 to 1. So 1 times 1 is 1. That's why we have 1 here. We bring our plus sign, plus. Yeah, let's take this one. So now let's take. So we are taking Q2 here, right? So since Q has a square here, we are bringing the 2 here. And now 2 minus 1. Now we are getting 2 Q1. This is the plus 2 Q. So this is going to be our marginal cost for this function, right? You get it? So our variable cost, this 10 here becomes our fixed cost. And our variable cost in this function becomes this one because they change when quantity also changes, right? So this variable cost, this is the variable cost in there. So if we want to get average variable cost, right, we divide this by Q, which is 2 units, and then we are getting 3. So we divide this by 2, getting 3, and the like. So an example, the example is in here. So you see MC was 1 plus 2 Q, but fixed cost is this. And then MC, when we put in the 2, this is what we are getting. So basically, the same thing. The economics of scale. So the advantage a firm gets as a result of increasing its shares, and then leading to a fall in the long run average cost curve. And then that's why the long run is falling here. And then the diseconomics of scale is when the long run average cost curve rises. So that's what we are seeing in here. And the like. So all right, so now we are coming to talk about the cost of producing 2 goods, for example. So you see, there are some firms that when they produce 2 goods, they have less cost. Like when they produce the 2 goods together, they have their total cost of producing the 2 goods are lesser than producing them in one, right? So for example, let's say a carpenter A carpenter who is producing a chair, right? He can produce chair and susu box at a lesser cost, like doing them together at a lesser cost than producing them individually. Because, for example, producing the chair, and there can be some leftover wood that can be used to produce the susu box at a lower cost, right? But if he chooses to produce the susu box separately, then he has to go and buy things again and then come and produce. So this is what we are coming to talk about here. So basically, there's something we call economics of scope. So economics of scope, it is cheaper to produce two outputs jointly instead of um producing them separately. That's what I just spoke about. That there is economic of scope for a carpenter when he produces let's say a chair and then a susu box like together than producing them individually. You get it? So, but this thing in Ghana, for example, we as consumers, I'm not sure we get economics of scope, because normally it should be that when you buy, let's say, wache 15 cedis at once, Anka, you should be getting more wache than buying them small, like buying one 7 cedi and buying one 8 cedi. Right. But in Ghana, if you are going to buy wache, unless you buy, let's say you are going to buy wache 15 cedis, you have to buy 7 cedi, and you have to also this is one thing you have to also know how to like try and then know how to speak the wache seller's language. If she is a Muslim, Amira, saying get it, just say something like Hausa. Then once you are buying, they will give you plenty. But if you don't know and you go and speak your normal language, they will do it to you. So if you want to buy wache 15 cedis here and you are buying all at once, there's something called Mia. They will Mia you. Right? They wouldn't really give you the right quantity. But if you are buying 15 cedis and you buy, let's say, 7 cedi one, 8 cedi one, when you compare, you will see that yes, 7 cedi one and 8 cedi one is more efficient than only 15 cedis one. So take note. So basically, economic of scope is when producing two goods together is like cost lesser than producing them separately. As I use the chair and then the susu box as an example for a carpenter. So here, for example, they said it is cheaper for MTN to produce internet connectivity and instant messaging service jointly than separately. So cost complementarity. There is cost complementarity if marginal cost of producing one declines as more of good two is being produced. So for example, cost complementarity here, complementarity here, the same thing as the carpenter producing wood and then producing chair and then susu box. So as more and more the carpenter produces more chairs, there will be more leftover of wood that can be able to produce more of good two here. For example, good two here is susu box. You get it? So there is also cost complementarity there. So quantitatively, that's what has been shown there. So for example, we can use the same thing to get their marginal cost. For example, this equation, for example, we can solve for their marginal cost right now. Should we? Okay, let's do this as an assignment. Just use the same formula. We are solving for marginal cost of Q1. Because it's MC1, solve marginal cost for Q1. And then here is C2. So here is supposed to be MC2. Solve marginal, here is supposed to be MC2, right? do it, and then you can type it into the comment section, right? Here it's supposed to be MC2. I think so. It's supposed to be MC2, right? So I think it has been solved already, but I want it step by step. So here you are going to differentiate this function with respect to where you are seeing only Q1, right? So meaning that this part won't be part. You won't even touch this. You won't touch this, and you won't also touch this. What you are going to do with is this one. So we just differentiate it. Q1 here, Q here has 1 at the top, so here will tend to, here the top will tend to 0. So here we will get AQ2. That's why I do it and then type it into the comment section right now. So, so that's it. So the manager and the production, cost minimization. So choice of optimal input makes to minimize cost of producing a given level of output. Cost minimization, choice of optimal input makes to minimize, okay, the same thing. So what is the optimal or the least costly way of acquiring input? How to get the maximum for each input and how to incentivize. So this is basically the summary of what the manager must decide on in this chapter. So tomorrow I'll be recording on this, where I'll be talking about everything in here, and then also talking about the firm concentration, whereby I also try my possible best. This is the firm concentration. Try my possible best to give some insights on how to do the assignment has been given the IA. So stay tuned, and then you will hear from me. If not today, tomorrow. Yeah, I'm tired, so tomorrow I'll do that. All right. It's bye for now. See you.